Hi, this is Kim Knight from KimKnightHealth.com and the Emotional Alchemy Academy.com. And in this webinar, I'm going to be sharing some really juicy bits of information about health and how to get well if you're not well, and also details about my upcoming 10-week online group coaching training in how to reverse symptoms. So specifically for this webinar, this is the agenda. I'm going to start with a healing story, and then I'm going to be talking about 3 top causes of illness and 8 myths and truths about health. And I'll probably also share a little bit about how I come to be doing what I'm doing, my background, my training, my own personal story. And after that, I'll be sharing some details about the 10-week online training and telling you how you can find out more information, how you can enroll, and how you can, if necessary, book a quick consultation with me to find out, is this the right program for me? So I'm going to start with a story. And the reason I'm sharing this is that it's something that happened to me yesterday, which as it was happening and after it happened, I realized, wow, there's some really good learning points in here for anybody who is wanting to get well or has got symptoms or has got some sort of problem that they're wanting help with. So I went for a walk yesterday morning, and I live down a long right of way in the country. It's probably about a third of a kilometre, the driveway to walk just up to the road. And in New Zealand here, if you're not living in New Zealand, we have our post boxes at the end of our driveway. So however long our driveway is, that's where you'll find the post box. They're not attached like, I'm from the UK, they're not attached to the house. So I walked up to the end of the driveway, and I hadn't checked my post box for a while, my letterbox. And unfortunately, I've lost the key. I actually have a PO box, so I don't really have to go into my letterbox very often, but I've lost the key, so the only way to get the letters out was to stick my hand in the letterbox. And my hand got stuck. Now, this hasn't happened before, but it got stuck, so I'm standing there at the end of the driveway in the country with my hand stuck in a letterbox, nobody else around, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't even have my cell phone with me. Usually I take my cell phone with me when I go on a walk, but I didn't take it, so I couldn't even ring my neighbour, who I knew was home, to ask them for some help. Now, what then happened was I was trying to get my hand out of the letterbox, and the plastic was really sharp. And first of all, I cut one finger on one hand, and then as I was trying to get the hand that was still in the letterbox out, that started to get cut as well. And then I started to feel a little afraid, because it was like, wow, if I can't get my hand out of the box without cutting myself seriously, then this could be quite serious. So here are some what I call lessons from a letterbox, because I did manage to extricate my hand, but I did cut myself in the process, and then I had to deal with that. But here are some lessons that I got from that experience, which do apply to any type of healing. The number one thing was, as it was happening, I was able to stay calm and centered. And this is so important, because if we lose our center and we get emotionally overwhelmed or we go into fear, then we can't think clearly and we can't make good decisions. Also, when we do that, as far as healing is concerned, we lessen the ability of the body to heal itself, because when we're stuck in the stress response, the body is just in an emergency survival state, and that is not an ideal state for healing. We need to know how to bring ourselves back into a relaxation response if we want to heal. So the number one thing was to stay calm and centered. The second thing was to somehow trust that the situation will be resolved and that help will come if needed. And by the way, as I'm going through this, I'd like you to relate what I'm saying to your situation. If you have some sort of health problem, which may well be the case if you're watching this video, then I'd like you to relate everything that I'm saying right now to your situation. So we need to be able to trust that we're going to solve the problem and that the right help will come if needed. So as I was standing there wondering, okay, how am I going to deal with this? My hand is stuck in the letterbox, and it must have looked quite funny, really. We could do a comedy sketch on it, but it didn't feel that funny at the time. But I noticed that down the road, about two or three houses away, the dustbin men were approaching. And so I knew that, if I hadn't got my hand out by the time they arrived, that they could probably help me do that. And I also knew that, if necessary, I would maybe flag somebody down in their car driving past, or at some point my neighbour would drive out. So sooner or later, I was going to get a resolution. So this is a really important point as far as healing is concerned. We need to trust that the situation will be resolved and that we will get the help that we need. And also, connected with that is the fact that we need to trust that we can ask for help. Because often when we're stuck in a situation that is stressing us out, we can even forget to ask for help or not know where to go to ask for help. So we need to know that we can ask for help. Now, that was part one, if you like, but then once my hand was out and I was bleeding and I was walking back to my house, then there were some other key points and lessons and learnings. And the first one was to know and to trust that my cuts would heal. Now, this sounds very simple because we're just talking about a cut, but this can be applied to any symptoms, even serious symptoms. And one of the things that we need to do if we're ill is that we need to trust our body, and we need to trust that our body knows what to do to heal as long as we're doing what it needs in order to do that. We have to trust that our body is a self-healing mechanism and that it knows how to heal itself. And a lot of people don't think that way. They go into the fear, they go into the worst case scenario, and that is not helpful. It's not helpful for the mind, for our state of mind, for our peace of mind, and it's not helpful for the body's ability to heal. So this is one of the things that people learn when they come on my programs. We also have to learn how to send what is called good, healthy information to any injury or symptom. Now, what most people do when they have a symptom or an illness is that they're thinking about the illness and the problem and the pain, and they're reinforcing that because they're thinking about it. They're focusing on what that pain is, what is not going right, what is going wrong, and unfortunately that reinforces that situation within the body. So one of the secrets to healing is to learn how to think differently and to send different healing information into our body. And so this was something that I was doing immediately as I was walking back down towards the house. And this is something that people learn when we go into the program. The next thing that we also need to recognize is that when we've experienced an unexpected shock, which in the healing world, so to speak, we called a Yudin moment, an unexpected, dramatic, isolating, no strategy event, then we need to know how to manage that shock on an emotional, energetic level. In other words, we need strategies and techniques and the knowledge to know how to clear that energetic, emotional vibration from our body-mind. Because even though this was a relatively minor thing, it created a shock inside my body because it was completely unexpected. And there was some fear that was triggered initially when I recognized that I couldn't get my hand out of the letterbox and that I was already bleeding. So that was a shock and a trauma, even on a small level, to my body. And so when we're learning to heal ourselves and learning how to do that, we have to know how to recognize and clear these emotional traumas and shocks. And the fourth thing, which I mentioned before, is that we need to know and understand that we're going to have to ask for help. If we're stuck in a problem where we cannot resolve it by ourselves, then we're going to have to get some help. And for me, it was going to be, okay, well, I'm going to ask the dustbin man. But also afterwards, as I was walking back down the driveway, I knew I had a choice. I could either come back into my house and find a plaster myself, or I could go to my neighbour and ask for some help. And I decided to go to my neighbour because I knew that I wanted some emotional support. I wanted some people support, for the emotional shock that I just experienced. And so I went to my neighbour and I said, hey, listen, this has just happened. I'm bleeding. Can you help me? And of course she helped, because people want to help people. And this is what people will get when they join this program. Because it's a live coaching training program over a period of 10 weeks, we will create a rapport with other members. We will create safety and trust and openness and support. And this is really important for the healing process. We need to feel safe, nurtured, and supported. And one of the things that people tend to do is to try and do everything themselves without enough support. And things are not working for two reasons. They're not working because A, they don't have the right information and the right strategies and the right solutions, and also even an understanding of what is causing the problem. So they're in the darkness, if you like, which, does not help us to get the result that we want. And secondly, we don't have enough support. We're often doing it all by ourselves. And I'll share maybe a bit more about that in a moment when I share my own journey back to health. But we need support. So I asked for support. So the next thing is we need practical help. Apart from the emotional support, we also need practical solutions. Now, for me in the situation yesterday, that was getting a plaster and putting a plaster on my hand, or actually both hands, because I had cuts on both hands. So I needed a plaster, and that was a practical solution to take care of my hand. And this is what we need when we want to heal illness. We need concrete, practical solutions which are going to help us. And usually this is what people don't have. They don't have it because they're not taught it. And I wasn't taught it. I didn't know this until I worked it out through many years of trial and error of what is it that I need to do to reverse symptoms. And the last thing that we need time to heal. So obviously my body is going to take a couple of days to heal these cuts, and they're already healing themselves. They're already much better than yesterday, because the body heals by itself given the right conditions. But one of the things, or one of the conditions that the body needs, is it needs the appropriate time to do its healing. And often people can have a false expectation of what that time is. And we have to be patient, and we have to honor the body's ability to heal. So these are just a few key lessons that I learned from my Letterbox incident. And I hope that as I was sharing these key points, that you have been thinking about your own situation and picking out, well, what applies to me? Because I'm sure there'll be something there that will be pertinent.